Welcome to HandleBullying.com, just covering a short review that was written. When was it written? Unfortunately, the date isn't here, but it would have been in 2014 regarding the film Noah, starring Russell Crowe and a number of other actors who are becoming quite a lot more prolific recently. But mainly Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly were the two main actors, along with Emma. Forgotten her last name. I'm sorry. I'll get it in a moment. It'll come up on the screen. Emma Watson. Now, the story has quite a few things about it that just don't quite add up and don't quite make sense in this film. It's supposed to be a biblical film, but there are quite a few things about it that just don't quite read consistently with either what you see in the Bible, or if you don't like what you see in the Bible, it still doesn't work with the counter narrative that the director is trying to propose. Obviously, I'll just quickly run through the major points that were most offensive. Obviously, the one about Noah becoming psychotic, threatening to murder his children, that would have been the most deeply offensive of deeply offensive things you could suggest about Noah, because when you read the story, it actually says that Noah was a comfort to the people around him. Now, there's no denying that if you were to actually witness the total destruction of humanity as you saw it, and you got on a boat that you were told by God, that there is no way that anyone is denying it would drive you once the whole event had happened. Now, it was 40 days, right? That he was on the boat, right? But according to the re-scripted narrative of the director, it was months and months and months. At least sort of like enough months for the character that Emma Watson was playing to give birth, and where this sub-narrative or sub-text of Noah's madness and insanity and murderous stylings, if you like, were to become evident. All right, so that was the probably the most offensive part from a traditional point of view. The other part is actually, it is in some ways, on one hand, it's offensive, but it's actually more, shall we say, it's more of an opportunity for people generally to ask questions. Now, in my tale, I haven't even mentioned about the magic grass and the nature of the wasteland of the world, which again was a narrative base point that didn't quite add up. But the aggrandizement of the cruelties of men avoided the biblical data on the mixing of Nephilim and men and the mighty men of old. And so those giants that you saw, those rock giants, were supposed to be sort of a depiction of the fallen angels that mixed with the daughters of men and created the Nephilim. And they were supposed to be, according to Genesis 6, the mighty men of old. But what happened was this enormous confusion, a reduction of that event, and an aggrandizement of the wickedness of and cruelties of men. So you have a reiteration of the plotline of the sons of Seth, that they were, also the sons of Cain were ungodly and so wicked, and their offenses against the environment were so bad that God said, that's it for all of you. And that was a total obfuscation of the actual reason the Bible says the flood was sent. The actual reason the Bible says the flood was sent was because essentially men were no longer men. They were part men and part fallen angel, right? The sons of God left their post, which is confirmed elsewhere in the Bible. And it's one of these discussions that in some ways is a very new discussion. It's not a discussion that you would find has been had in churches on a regular basis over the last 50 or 100 years. It's really something that's really taken shape, particularly in the last 5-10 years. There's commentators such as Chuck Missler, who's simply taught what the Bible says on the subject and unpacked it. He's simply pushed over the first domino, which obviously it's not his domino, it's in the Bible, we can all read it there, which says this really strange thing happened. It caused incredible violence on the world. There were giants, there were sons of God, there was all sorts of craziness, and um, that's what caused the flood. Now, there's no denying that that Cain or the descendants of Cain were not necessarily nice people, and maybe they were worse than what was depicted in that movie. But that's not the problem, because they were still men. They were not men. They were not half man, half cow, or half man, half dog, or half man, half something else. They weren't a hybrid species. They were fully man. They were fully male and fully female. They weren't uh, some sort of splice. And if you have covered this topic yourself, you'll know that what was done here was it explored the topic, but then it entertained this absolute total heresy as far as the Bible's concerned, that fallen angels get a second go at heaven, because that would totally remove everything that we know about the devil himself. It would remove everything that we know about angels and demons. So you've got pretty much this story that's in the Bible is that 1/3 of all the angels left their first estate. They left their job, whatever their job was. They left it. They said, here's the middle finger to God. And they were kicked out. There was a war and they were kicked out. And the angels were left, 2/3 at that time. Now, has there been more created since that time? On both sides, I have no idea. I suppose it makes sense that a lot has changed since those days when it happened. But the point is that this film serves a purpose. It's not a total waste of space, this film. Russell Crowe, you might say, well, is it his fault for some of these plot points and his fault for depicting Noah as a psychotic maniac trying to, go well beyond common sense? Look, I won't answer that question right now. I'll leave that to you, or I won't even invite that sort of a thing. Score that I give this film, anticipated film review, 4 to 5 out of 10. Production value is 8.5 to 9 out of 10. So yes, the film was well produced, and the cultural bullying score risks 8.5 out of 10. So obviously, look, as far as these ideas are concerned, it has very little regard for the text of the Bible, and um, and that's not forgetting the simple atheism that's proposed by Noah's account of the beginning in Genesis, which was in the beginning, not that there was God in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. It was in the beginning there was nothing. And you know what the director's getting at there. You know that he's basically saying there's nothing there. And yet for the whole rest of the film, uh, he's talking about the creator. Now, on one hand, if he's trying to say something about the Big Bang Theory, there was nothing. There was nothing in the beginning. There was nothing. But on the other hand, the creator, well, forgive me for not quite understanding the dichotomy or the purpose of that dichotomy. But if the director was trying to make some sort of a cheap point scoring event through those words, well, it it just seems like, well, it's just a duplistic message. Maybe he doesn't want to throw the atheists out of the theater, and he doesn't want to he wants to pat the Christians on the head. Well, there's no denying that if you believe the Bible and you believe it shouldn't be mishandled, it shouldn't be the biblical films should not be sold as biblical films if they're going to degrade the text in fundamental ways. Well, the fact is that this film, as far as if you're a Christian, it is an offensive depiction. It's offensive, but despite that reality of its offensiveness, which it is, it still serves a purpose because it provokes people to ask questions that they wouldn't have asked about the Nephilim. What's going on there with these these giants? What's going on? Does the Bible really say that? Yes, it does. It's there. Now, this guy's sort of played a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle with these facts, but we can talk about that. When Noah became psychotic, threatening to murder his own children, okay. To say it went that far is just totally insane. He got drunk, but to say someone got drunk as opposed to threatening to murder their own children, I mean, don't tell me they're the same. They're in the same ballpark. They're not in the same ballpark. And to suggest they are is just, as I say here, it's plain stupid. I mean, give me a break. I'll leave it there. I bought this film. I bought it on Blu-ray. I've got it as a record, and maybe there'll be times I'll like to watch a few scenes or what have you, but it certainly it forces us to ask questions about why this film is talking about these topics, sort of changing things around, trying to confuse us. That in and of itself is worth. You take this film and then you use that to design some questions that you would like answered about the topics that they raise, about fallen angels, about the mighty men of old, about why was Noah really saved? What was the difference between Noah and everyone else? Was it really that he was legalistically so perfect and righteous? And the answer is no. The answer is no. All right, I'll leave it there.